If God loves us, why do people suffer? Maybe a family member or friend is suffering. Maybe they're gone. If he really loves me, how can this happen? God's original design was good without suffering. And it wasn't until sin entered the equation that suffering did as well. God cannot sin. He does not tempt anyone, and suffering is not in his original design for you. Everything good comes from God, so why would he allow suffering? Suffering entered the world when sin entered the world, and we cannot stop suffering when people have free will to sin still. James 1:13-18 says, "And remember, when you are tempted, do not say, 'God is tempting me,' because God never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. So don't be misled. My dear brothers and sisters, whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down from us, from God, our Father, who created all the lights in heaven. He never changes or casts a shifting shadow. He chose to give birth to us by giving us his true word. And we, out of all creation, became his prized possession." Sin is missing the mark. Sin is not doing God's will. As a young Christian, I would think that sin is just not following God's law or not following God's rules. But sin is not giving glory to him. Sin is not doing what he has called you to. You could follow every single law, all 600 or whatever. You can follow every single law that God has given, and you could still be missing the mark because you're not doing a certain commandment or doing God's will for your life. 1 Peter 1:5-10 says, "In his kindness, God called you to share in his eternal glory by means of Jesus Christ. So after you've suffered a little while, he will restore, support, and strengthen you. He will place you on a firm foundation." Because sin entered the world, because we can never be perfect, Jesus came, lived a sinless life. He came on the cross. He died for us. All of our sin washed away if we choose to believe and accept him. He gave it all. He suffered on earth for us. It says he cried, he wept, he sweat blood, he was lashed, and he was hung. Nails through him, and he died on the cross, giving everything for you and for me. And so when we look at our suffering, when we look at our sin, and when we look at temptation that comes our way and hurt that comes our way, we can look at James 1:2-8. It says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking, but when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave in the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. Such people should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do." And that's the thing. Jesus came and gave it all for those that want to follow him and want to live a life for him. But if you're divided between things of the world and God, you just show up to church on Sunday and you just get filled up, and then throughout the week you just forget about what happened on Sunday, and you live a life full of sin, and you don't pray, you don't read the Bible, you don't even think about God, and you're divided between the world and between God. He says, do not ask for wisdom, do not ask for joy, if you're going to be divided between God and the world, if you want peace and joy, if you want to feel, if you want to just be fully devoted to God, then you need to be devoted. Like, if you want the peace and the joy that only God can give in your time of hurting and time of suffering, where it doesn't even feel like you're suffering anymore, you need to be fully devoted to God. And lastly, 1 Peter 1, 6 through 7. So be truly glad. There's wondrous joy ahead. Even though you must endure many trials for a little while, these trials will show you that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. So instead of saying, if God loves me, why am I suffering? Say, I am suffering, and God still loves me.